So, I'm going to be talking about traffic, of course. That's an interesting topic. So, how are things so far? Doing good? Sahar, right?
Yeah, Sahar.
You have something to give out to everyone.
Oh, yeah. Are these evaluation forms?
Yep. So, I've been in Canada for 5 years, and along with Sabah, we've been exposed to different situations, different people, different scenarios, and we learned, I think, a lot from those experiences. And I thought that I might as well, why not just put all of that together and I have some media and marketing background as well, in a context that gives the new starter dentist in Canada a head start in terms of understanding what the environment looks, sounds, and feels like. So I called it effective merging, because that's effectively what we're doing, right? We're merging into the highway, and what are the things that we need to be aware of when we're doing that merging. So, I'm going to be giving a brief introduction about myself, and slightly differently this time, because generally I tend to run through it, but because this relates to exactly the process that we all go through, so I'm going to delve slightly into the details of what I've gone through, my experiences here, something about the organized dentistry structure and how it functions, just a bird's eye view, understanding why we're here in terms of foreign trained dentists, connecting the dots. Who's who? Yes, that's an important part of getting oriented, right? In terms of when you talk about organized dentistry, there's some important people and important organizations that we need to be aware of, and integrating uneventfully. So, a little bit about myself, my education. I did my dentistry from Karachi in 2002, and I recently completed last year a new media journalism graduate certificate program from Sheridan, and I'm at the tail end of my marketing diploma from McMaster. So I think I've seen the profession and the country from a few different angles very closely, and I think all this gives me a unique perspective that I feel that I can share with you, and definitely will give you a head start in terms of knowing the environment. I've been into dental practice for about the first 5 years. I was pretty much regular, and then it kind of weaned off as I got into other projects. I've been into teaching, dental materials, prosthodontics, two subjects people love to hate, and clinical photography, which is kind of a unique area that I have good exposure in. I've been into dental journalism, which was one of the first jobs that I actually did. Interesting. Immediately after graduating, my first formal job was as a dental journalist in a magazine. And I've been associated with 3M and Able Dent as a marketing person. My experience with 3M was interesting because I was their scientific marketing manager, which means basically I was responsible at a country level for all the education that they did, and which includes lectures, hands-on, appropriate use of materials, and that I did for 5 years. So that kind of formed the basis, coupled with my background in journalism and media, to look at how things need to be communicated and articulated for maximum effectiveness when it comes to dentistry. And I've been part of course, the Learning Center for a couple of years now, but what drove this was C-Factor, when I put together a dental media and marketing company called C-Factor. Now, at times I have to explain to people what the C-Factor implies, but having gone through that recent refresher, I think most of you remember. It was interesting. I went to a study club in Hamilton, and I was going to give a talk on dental media and marketing, and the doctor, who was a very senior periodontist, he just asked me just 30 seconds before he was about to give my introduction, he said, "Abbas, what's the name of your company?" I said, C-Factor. "What does that mean?" okay, and I decided not to. I said, it's a restorative term. He said, how many people in the room do you think know that? I said, 60%. I said, he turned around and said, guys, have you heard of the term C factor? And there was dead silence in the room. No one knew what C factor was. And then, of course, I felt that it was my responsibility to start with the fact that, of course, guys, it's a restorative term, composite, bonded wall surface to unbonded ratio, that's what it comes from. And I think I expected a higher level of awareness of such things when I was naming the company. I should have known better. Anyways, so I came to Canada in 2012 and landed, started my job search, stuff that everyone does, the usual. And in 2013, I was employed in a respectable job and happy. Fair enough. As the years went by, I started getting slightly unsure about what I got myself into. And then I wrote my AFK as I was getting increasingly unsure. And believe me, it was financially a very rewarding job, financially. By Q2 2014, when I had flunked my AFK, because I was working full time, I couldn't give it the due time that it required. I was frustrated in my employment. I resorted to education. I started my diploma in marketing. That's when I started it. I'm finishing it now. Okay, keep in mind. So that's how many balls I've been juggling. I decided to pull the plug on my job. I quit, and I went to school for another program as well, which was photography. But I was happy. I was happier when I was working. So I was initially under the psychological pressure of being employed as probably a source of happiness. As it turned out that not really. So I put myself by choice, into a position where I was financially compromised, but everything else was working out fine. I was enjoying what I was studying. My wife started studying as well for the licensing. We had kids, juggling so many things. It was like working 5 jobs. Because I had to do the dishes, had to do the diapers, and had to go to 2 schools, doing 2 programs, assignments from 2 programs. It was crazy. And then I started this company, and bit by bit, I started chipping away on things. I was happier being self-employed. And this is when, in 2015, I was reintroduced to Dr. Isaac. And we started working for Domican, that is led by the wonderful Roxanne here. And we started working, and I kind of started to get back into the passion of, the education thing, and the communication and that part. And then I switched to a program, the media program at Sheridan, which was a graduate program. And I finished that program. I continued to be self-employed. I gained another client, which is Greenish, which is a natural product company which is just about to launch their first dental product. So I'm helping them launch that product as well. And then CIDE came along, and now I think it's the biggest project and biggest focus of all that I'm doing. So I learned by experience that. Now, how many people can read this? 0. 0, okay? Unfortunately, we don't have any Persians in the room. They would have been able to read that. But what this means is, don't fear the intensity of opposing wind, O falcon. It only blows to help you fly even higher. It's only the headwinds that help an airplane or a bird fly higher. So be like a falcon. Rise to the occasion. Always have a bird's eye view of the situation before pouncing, and at the end of the day, return to your base and stay rooted. I love this quote because it relates, I can so much relate to, anyone knows who said this?
DiCaprio.
Your experience facing and overcoming adversity is actually one of your biggest advantages. And this is something every foreign trained dentist goes through. Every. Maybe not Archie. So, let's talk about organized dentistry and how it is structured. I'm just giving you a bird's eye view. There's a Ministry of Health that regulates anything and everything that goes on with the health of Canadians. And then there's the Ministry of Human Resource and Social Development as well. They keep changing its name for some reason. I don't know, these days it's called ESDC, Employment and Social Development Canada, and they just keep changing the names. But be aware that they are involved in how the profession is indirectly run. They influence the influx of professionals of various categories. So you'd rather be aware of it because they are involved in fundings and some things that go on behind the scenes. You need to be aware that there are provincial colleges, 10 of them, and every province has a college that has slightly different parameters of practice, more or less similar, but they're supposed to regulate the standard of care and protect the public. Then there's a body called CDRAF, which is Canadian Dental Regulatory Authorities Federation. The CDRAF is the platform where all provincial colleges gather. So provincial colleges at the provincial level, they gather and sit together at CDRAF as one. So that's another forum. And then there's the famous,
Our favorite.
the famous National Dental Examining Board. And the board, what is the board? The board is basically 12 members, one per college. So please note, there are provincial colleges, then there's CDRF, which is composed of the colleges, and the NDB that is composed of the colleges. So basically it's 10 people at all levels. And the Dental Association, where all provincial associations gather. Fair enough? And the Canadian Dental Accreditation Council. So those are some names, some organizations, and some things that you can delve into more details, but this is all that you need to know for now. So why are we all here in terms of foreign trained dentists? The birth of the equivalency process and other background realities. The equivalency process was born in 11. So what happened at that time was, the ministry at that time was Human Resource and Social Development. It was called HRSD at that time. They created a fund of $800,000 and they gave it to CDRA. This was exactly the time when the government actively started recruiting foreign trained dentists. So 2,000 dentists were over a period of 2 years to begin with. And I'm not sure if they know that half of these people are married to dentists. So they're asking for trouble because they're getting 3,000. So anyways, the CDRF took the money. The NDEB executed the executive order of creating this process. The provincial colleges were supposed to accept the process. And remember, all three levels are technically the same. So they accepted that, and the CDA announced the process to the Parliament and to the Canadians. So there's a change, there's a coordination that we can see here. That was in 2011. And the announcement came in November 2011 after the first cycle of exams had been completed. Because remember, initially it was just once a year. And this is what they said in that announcement. Marwan, can you please read this?
Yeah, sure. The NDEB equivalency process is brand new and was used for the first time this year. Candidates who choose to seek licensure are assessed on their fundamental knowledge, clinical skills, and clinical judgment in a process that can be completed in less than a year.
How many people agree with that?
No one.
Okay, anyways, this is just FYI, you know. That year, only 5% people had completed it. So, a bit surprising to give a sweeping statement like that. Anyways, let's talk about some numbers which I guess speak louder, but how relevant are they is another thing. You know, you can be loud and still. So, oops, I gave that. Did someone see that? No? Okay. How many foreign trained dentists do you think? Okay, if someone saw that, please don't speak out. How many foreign trained dentists are there in Canada, maybe in the system registered with the Dental Examining Board?
Well, not fully licensed yet.
Yeah, in the system, in the pool. If you saw that number, don't speak up. Just give me your guess.
3,000 to 4,000.
3,000?
3 to 4,000.
3 to 4?
100,000.
Oh, come on.
It's a whole pool.
In 2014.
Bring it up.
I'm extrapolating, but approximately that's. And this comes from Jack Jarrow's presentation that he did in ADEA. So this is reliable data. Unless someone is, unless my source is off. So there's 6,000 to 7,000 people out there. And every year, how many people make it through?
250.
Thank you. So 5 years times 200? 1,000. So that's the number of people registered with Dental Examining Board, which is more than 25% of Canada's existing dentist strength, which is approximately 23,000 to 24,000. So that's the pressure. Okay, that's the pressure that is being buffered right now by the system. See, and for some reasons that we will also discuss. And this is the dental licensing numbers over the 5 years that the country. Keep in mind, Canada in terms of population is a small country. You have to keep that always in mind, that we're just talking about 36 million people. We get that in 2 cities. Outside of Canada, you know, elsewhere, in my country, you get 36 million in 2 cities. So we're talking about this increase that used to be just 400 people, up to now 1,000. That's it. That's huge. That's a huge jump. And Bill said that, you know, the dentist population is growing faster than the other population. So maybe that's why they're using dentists to make up. Source countries. Who do you think is the biggest supplier, provider of foreign trained dentists to Canada?
India, China,
Iran. Iran or India?
India.
I think India or Iran. India. Second is Iran.
Who's second?
Iran?
Third is Iraq, I think. Philippines.
I was surprised to see that. I was surprised because I'm yet to come across a dentist from Philippines. I don't know that.
Egypt.
Egypt.
Interesting. Iraq. Pakistan.
Don't put me in other countries. Other countries.
And Colombia, the last one is Colombia.
Where is Syria?
Where do they come from?
Well, this is 2014, so I think that would have changed. Yeah, Syria would come somewhere, I think, around, I don't know, maybe Pakistan or, I don't know. Okay, so these are the numbers. These are from 2014. You can extrapolate them. That's not very far off. It's not very old data, but fairly recent. Okay, now this is where it starts to get interesting. Global healthcare cost in US dollars is in a number that I don't even know how to say. It's so many billions of dollars, but what I say is only 5% of it is related to oral disease. And the trend is similar when you transfer it to, remember this is a global number, transfer it to Canadian numbers. The Canadian healthcare costs, and this comes from a very recent report from the Canadian Dental Association. It's very fresh, so the data is reliable. It's $220 billion is what the total healthcare costs in Canada. And dental makes up for 6% of it. Out of this healthcare cost, $220 billion healthcare cost, 70%, 71% is public sector, public funded, and private, 29%. This is the overall cost. And you can imagine that dentistry mostly falls in the private segment. So the private costs are nearly $64 billion. Dental accounts for 20% of total private dental healthcare total private healthcare cost in Canada. That's huge. And out of this chunk, the dental amount, 94% is private, and only 6% is public funded. So dentistry, by and large, is completely a privately funded profession. And 60% of it is insurance funded, and 40% is out of pocket, as they call it. So at the end of the day, this is what we're looking at. Now you have to remember this number. This is the average per capita spending of a dental patient in Canada. $355. It's not a lot. That's not a lot.
Thank you for telling me now.
That's not why we're here. But telling you is why we're here. And as I said, it comes from fresh, reliable data. So now, consider this. What is cost for the patient? What does it mean to you as a dentist? What would you call it? No, if we say something is a cost to the patient, what is that money for you? Revenue. Thank you. So total revenue is what the basic cost is, your revenue. There are nearly 10,000 practices in Canada, approximately 24,000 dentists. So that gives you an approximate number of 1.2 million. What? CIDE average? On the average. I'm not sure who wrote CIDE there. Did you? You wrote CIDE there? It was a typo, just kidding. Just to wake you up. So this is revenue, $1.2 million. Now what if right now you jack up the number to 12,000 practices and 30,000 dentists? Suddenly, overnight, if this change happens, what will happen to the average?
The revenue for per dentist is going to increase, yeah.
Of course. So now why you're going through what you're going through?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now 80-20 rule. How many people know the 80-20 rule?
Tim Ferriss, is it for Tim Ferriss?
Well, they just call it the 80-20 rule. I know it from marketing.
Yeah.
What it means is 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients. It's a fairly well-known, reliable parameter and you can apply it nearly everywhere. So let's apply this to the dental revenues and see what we get. The dental revenues or costs in Canada are nearly $13 billion, right? 20% of it is 2.54 billion. 80% is 10 billion. Just 10,000 practices. 20% 2,000, 80% 8,000. 24,000 dentists. So if we apply this principle here, it means that 20% of the practices are making
2.5 billion.
no
The opposite?
80% of the money. 80% of this revenue is generated by 20% of the practices. So 2,000 practices and 4,800 dentists are making an average of $5 million annually. And at the other extreme, you have 20,000 dentists and 8,000 practices who are making only $350,000. And Roxanne and I had this discussion this morning that validates that this is fairly accurate. Although it comes from a different principle, we're calculating it differently. But how many years of experience?
Oh, since 1975.
Okay, I wasn't even born. So nearly 40 years, okay? So keep that in mind. The dental workforce in 2010, it was something like this. 27%, it was 19,000 something dentists at that time. 22,000 hygienists, 30,000 assistants. So if you put everything together, you get nearly 75,000 people making up the profession, right? So that's huge. And I think over time there has been an estimated 20% increase. So now if you compute that or extrapolate that number, that used to be 73,000 professions, you easily have 90,000 people now. You missed the best part.
I'm sorry.
You missed the best part.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's start connecting those dots. Now the Canadian Dental Association says this to the Parliament in 2012. A small minority of Canadians do not have access to regular dental care. And they say this statement as an excuse of not needing more dentists. But if you read the whole thing, the context is that we don't really need more dentists. Although they're the people who announced the system the last year. So next year they say, okay, we don't need really many people because there's only a small minority of Canadians. And then you start seeing dentist glut reporting in the media in 2013. Newspapers reporting on, featuring interviews of, guess who? The Canadian Dental Association people. So of course, you know how lobbying works. And then recently, the press separately starts reporting high costs keep 6 million of Canadians from visiting a dentist each year. So basically, statement number 1 and number 3 are saying the same thing. They're using the same data, but they're giving it 2 different spins. And both are true. Both are true, but they're saying it differently, right? So it is the same 6 million people, the same 15% of the population that does not have access that they are referring to. But they're referring to it as a small minority of Canadians who don't have regular. They're right. But that number, that small minority, translates into 6 million people, which the media would use to say something else, right? So you have to understand the context of the information. Unless you know how true, how correct it is, then you can apply it to different situations. And that's what's exactly happening here. And they were very candid in saying that there's no shortage as far as numbers are concerned. However, there is a distribution problem. The problem is not statistically you don't see a problem, but the problem is distribution. Okay? So that is a problem, and what's the other name for a problem in this situation for you and I? If I say that there is a distribution problem, what is the other word that you can replace it with?
Misrepresentation.
Challenge.
Opportunity. Every problem is an opportunity to fix it. So if statistically there is a problem in distribution, it's statistically fine, but the problem is in distribution, it means there is an opportunity in the distribution. Then the RCDSO wants, this comes from a campaign letter by a council member. This is a campaign letter from someone running for the council who was at that time representative of the RCDSO in the NDEB. Now read it. Marwan? Again?
The college needs to be more proactive with respect to the oversaturation of dentists in Toronto. This problem of too many dentists in Toronto has been an issue for quite some time, and it's only getting worse. This affects the bottom line of all our dental practices.
Right? Who is saying this?
Lauren Abbas.
Running for? Council. Sitting on? NDB board. This is a direct quotation from the letter. It's something that is available in writing. So, get to know who's who, guys. All the king's horses, their men and women. So, the first person that you should be knowing is this lady, who is the Minister of Health, Honorable Jane Philpott. The second person you should know that exists is the Executive Director of CDRAF, Dr. Diane Legault. She has a political background, and she's based in Montreal. And she heads the CDRAF. She's recently, I think, took over last year. Executive Director or Office of the Fairness Commissioner, Noza Jaffrey.
A woman.
This is why I said it. All the king's horses, all the king's men, and the women. Important people. Erwin Pfeffergrad. Firas loves him. He heads the RCDSO. He's been heading it for God knows when. Since when. Important person to know. A lot of that goes on. Keep in mind, whatever goes on in Canada is largely driven by what goes on in Ontario. So if it's something at the college level, CDRAF level, RCDSO has a key influence there. If there's something going on in the Dental Association, ODA has a key say in there. So keep that in mind. It's like, I think 70 to 80% weightage goes from Ontario and everything else. Jerome Marburg is exactly in his place, but in BC. And Jerome said last year, when there were Syrian refugees and Syrian dentists started to come in, he spoke to CBC. In his interview, he repeated the 2011 line that you read from the CDA. He said the same thing about the process, just last year. So maybe the first year they were naive, but he said the same thing the last year, and he said that the cost was $9,000 to $12,000. Really? Okay. So we all know this guy. Okay, this is someone, maybe I shouldn't even have bothered to put up here. Okay, Jack Jarrow is about to retire. Executive Director, important person to know. I came across an article of his where his only 2 references was his own 2 other articles. So I'm not sure what that means. Seriously, I said, okay, that explains it. That explains the whole NDEV scenario pretty well. The new president is Doug McKay. And this is someone you should really, really know. The new public representative, Jagjit Polly Pachu. She's based in Winnipeg. I'm in direct contact with her. So if you need any contact numbers, you know who to ask. So, but this is she just got inducted a few months back, and the previous one didn't even reply to emails. So, and I have her phone number. So. Dental Association. Current president is Dr. Randall Cruz. He's on Facebook. Dr. Binoy Saucy is the person who actually gives out all the communications that on behalf of Dental Association. And Dr. John O'Keefe is undoubtedly a wonderful person to know. He is a thorough gentleman. He takes care of the knowledge networks at CIDE, and he's a delight. He's a delight. So now, integrating uneventfully and positioning yourself for success in this scenario, in the context and the environment that you now know. So merge strategically. What do you do when you merge? When you're entering traffic, you check the signals, you make sure that the spacing is right, the speed is right, and then you merge and cancel signal. But a lot of this has got to do with the traffic around you, remember? Some of things that you need to do, you need to make sure that you're at the right speed, but you have to maintain space with others, merge with others. So beware of the environment. Optimize your presence. One of the major problems that we come across for untrained dentists is their absence from anything and everything that's happening in their profession. No one's involved. No one bothers to go to the shows. No one bothers to go to CE events. No one bothers to join anything and everything that is going on in the mainstream. So guys, if you remain as a bystander, you will remain so. So to take the initiative and show up. Showing up is half done. Mentally, you need to be very, very positive. I know 110% what we go through, and it's mentally very challenging. So we need to be positive because at the end of the day, we all get through it, mostly. And when it comes to your virtual presence, try to make sure that you have a balance between your real and virtual, which means your online presence. Network extensively, proactively, attend events. Understand the environment, and conquer the curse of context. The curse of context, as I call it, is basically when you run into any new situation and a new country, a new environment, there are many things that you don't really gather because of the contextual situation. Because someone does something in a certain way because of something that, it might be because of a law, it might be because of something that happened in the past, there could be several reasons. So it might be something that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Well, you just landed 2 years back. So you don't have the contextual understanding of that environment. Focus on getting that understanding. Spend time, proactively fish for that information. Change your profile. Not just your profile picture. How many of you have a LinkedIn profile? 1, 4.5. Okay. So get one. Get a good headshot. Where's Paul? I wanted him for this slide. I really I just made this slide for him. So get a LinkedIn profile, get a professional headshot, make sure your resume stands out. If you need any help, we can help. Dr. Eisner is very good at these things. He, like, Awais is not here. He just recently had Awais with his, Dr. Awais Salim, our instructor, his resume. And if your LinkedIn profile looks like this, make sure to make it look like this.
Talk among yourselves who will hear it.
Okay, that's okay. I think I'm lucky he wasn't here. Remember, you're a product that will be launched after X months or years. Plan to market it. You are a product for the market. Remember, you need to sell yourself. You need to market yourself. And you're not going to do that sitting at home or just attending the licensing exams. You got to get ahead of the rest. Even if the rest are doing the same, you got to be a step ahead. Trials and errors, learn from other people's mistakes. Probably some people would have seen this poll. The objective of this poll was to help people understand what other people learned. I'm not sure if they got that. But you see, this is just one example. Paul.
Yes,
I needed you here.
I needed a rest from speaking for too long.
Okay, so I showed them something, you know. I told them if your LinkedIn picture looks like this,
That's why I wanted you to leave.
make sure it looks like this. Anyways, so let's wrap up, and this is meant for people to learn from other people's mistakes. Okay, so do that. How many of you come across people who failed AFK or judgment 3 times? You have friends who failed it 3 times? What did they do wrong?
Repeated the same thing.
Repeated the same thing. They didn't change. I know one person who studied twice himself, and then on the 3rd attempt took an online course. Flunked all 3. Doors closed, done. I have a short video that I really like, and it's very relevant to what we do. And then I'm going to wrap up after a couple of slides.
You have to.
Oh, I think we muted it.
Oh.
Okay, here's the deal. If you want to be successful, here's the thing you have to do. You have to jump. There is no way around it. You have to jump. Every successful person has jumped. You got to jump. You got to take a leap of faith. You got to dash off that cliff, and you got to jump out there as far as you can. Now, a lot of times you stand on the cliff of life, and you see other people soaring by, gliding down like a bird flying through the air. You know, they go over to the south of France. You see them on a boat somewhere. You see their family vacation here, their family vacation there. You see them dressing like this. You see them in New York, and you see them in London. They flying by. You know why? It's because their parachute open. But the only way to get your parachute to open so you can soar, you got to jump. Now here's the problem. Here's the problem, my friends. When you jump, I can assure you one thing. You listening? I promise you this. Your parachute will not open right away. No, that's the fear part. I promise you your parachute will not open right away. You're going to hit them sides of the rocks. You're going to take your back out into the cliff. You're going to cut yourself. You're going to get wounded. You're going to get some tears and stuff like that. But eventually, parachute will open and you'll be sold. But here's the other caveat. Let me teach you this right here. If you do not jump, I promise you one thing, your parachute will never open. So you're safe, but you'll never soar. You got to jump.
So you got the jump. And remember, the most predictable way to succeed is to help others. I've learned it by experience. And our ideology is that, can you read that out, please?
Failure is not the opposite of success.
Then what is it?
It is a part of it.
It's a part of it. So failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of it. That's what we try to achieve here. And thank you for your time. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments about anything that was presented, I hope not. It was so clear? Okay, so let's move on to the last speaker of the day, Roxanne, and I'm sure she weighs less than her laptop does. I'll help you with that.
Okay.